So we're gonna start things off real quick. I wanted to just show you guys a parasitic plant found around here. I went out and grabbed a picture of it, so I'm gonna post that quick and then we'll jump right into it. So that plant right there, Indian pipe, hope you guys understand, it's white, parasitic, eats off the roots of other plants. And yeah, let's get into plant reproduction.
The sexual anatomy of an azalea here. Okay, this is the reproductive organ for this particular plant. Azaleas happen to be monoecious, meaning that they have both sexes present in this individual plant. That's very common in plants. Obviously, humans would be considered dioecious species. We have male and female individuals. Okay, so when we look at this right here, right in the center of the frame, you see the female part of the plant. That's called the carpel. Around the outside, we have stamen. They are like black tipped. There are 6 of them that I'm seeing here. See if I can't just rip one out and show it to you guys up close. Okay, so this right here is one of the stamens, the male part of the plant. So the stamen, you can see at the top here, that black part is called the anther. That's what's producing the pollen. Okay, and that is what we're hoping that these bees, different bees and different insects, you can maybe hear them buzzing around, are going to deposit on the female part of the plant. Okay, so again, it's the male part is called the stamen. Out at the tip here is the anther. Okay, and the rest of this here is called the filament. I hope that makes sense. Over here on the female part of the plant, see if I can't show you. Here's a good example. Flowers have already fallen out. That probably means that pollination has occurred here, and in the process of fertilization occurring. I just want to make sure before we go any further, there's a big difference between pollination and fertilization. What's left here is that central part of the flower. That right there is called the receptacle, and you can see the remaining sepals, the green small little leaves that the plant flower would have rested on. And then in the middle of that, you have an ovary. So, see if I can't show you guys right in the middle here. That is the ovary right down in there. Okay, and then this is the female structure down in the middle here. The part that I'm holding with my 2 fingers is called the style or the shaft, and then up here at the very tip, that's called the stigma. That part is very sticky. That is where we're hoping that pollen is going to get deposited. So when pollen gets put there, that's called pollination, and from there, it's going to happen as a pollen tube will form. It's going to grow all the way down through the style, all the way to the ovary, hopefully, and then both sperm nuclei are going to enter the ovary. One of them is going to create the endosperm, and the other is going to create the embryo. And so that embryo, we're hoping will develop and cause the ovary to swell, and that will be a fruiting body. You can think about an apple, traditional fruit, or you can think about maybe like a maple fruit, like a helicopter. So those things are both fruits. We'll take a look at fruit here in a second, but from there the fruit will grow out and then hopefully be able to develop into the next generation. So that is typical reproduction in plants.
So I wanted to show you guys, this is a grass flower inflorescence here. This bunch of flowers at the end of the stalk, and each of these would develop into a seed. Some plants have the ability for there to be self-fertilization, as I mentioned before. Others have to be cross-pollinated, and I just wanted to mention a couple different types of pollinators that are pretty unique in the world. Some plants, they create odors, chemical compounds to attract certain pollinators. Like, you know, there's a flower that smells like a corpse and it attracts flies. It's pretty unique to create its pollination. A lot of your red flowers will attract like a lot of hummingbirds, things like that. Some have very long cups where only like a butterfly stylet's going to be able to get into there. There are some flowers in the world that only are going to be fertilized by mammals. Bats do fertilization, and of course bees. You guys, bees are a multi-billion-dollar industry, really. They create the vast majority of crops in terms of pollination, and they're actually shipped on the back of trucks to supply that service to many of our major crops in the United States. It's insane. So obviously colony collapse syndrome, really big concern. Loss of bees and native bee genetics, certainly concerning globally, not just in the United States, but bees, like I said, are a huge industry, and their ability to pollinate obviously is a service that we really need. All right, moving on. Okay guys, I just want to show you a fruit here. It's the apple, of course, and you guys can see there, that is where the flower was. That's about where the receptacle was on the flower. And all this that I'm holding in my hand, that's the ovary of the plant. And the inside of this, if I cut into it, of course, it would be seeds. You guys have all cut into an apple, I'm assuming. And that apple ovary would be attached here with the stem to the plant. You have thousands of these that develop on one particular tree, and that's the fruit. Let's look at another one here. This is one of my favorite things in the world this time of year. It's a tomato. Okay, again, the tomato right here, these green leaves, that's the receptacle that was part of the flower. The flower would have been small and white. What I'm holding here is the ovary that's gotten swollen after fertilization has occurred. Again, and inside of this you'd see seeds. So this is a fruiting body for that particular plant. Okay, here's another example here. It's a grape. Okay, and again, grapes grow in vines around here. In the middle of this fruit, you would expect there to be seeds. This is actually a seedless grape, which would be something that wouldn't exist naturally. It would be hard for there to be propagation or the next generation if we had a seedless fruit, right? Because the whole point is to create an ovary that's big and swollen. And my cat wants to make a cameo here. Say what's up. So the fruit gets swollen, and that would be another example of a fruiting body. In biology, this, even though it's a similar shape, it's a much different plant organ. Okay, this right here is a storage structure, a bulb that would be actually below grade under the ground, right? And this is, of course, an onion, but this is part of the root structure, and it's considered vegetative tissue. We would consider that to be a vegetable, right? I know that's unusual for many of you. You'd probably consider this to be a vegetable, but that is indeed a fruit. So after the seed drops, it's going to be able to start growing as long as the soil conditions are right. A lot of seeds have to overwinter. You have to go through a freezing period, but this is an acorn that was transplanted last fall and started to grow into an oak tree. It's happens to be a white, actually a red oak, excuse me. But that was deposited last year, and now it's starting to grow. You can see a lot of the shells and remnants left over, the ones that haven't been consumed. But that typically is what's going to happen from the fruit if it's deposited in ideal conditions. The thing that's important to understand is that most plants don't want to deposit their fruit right next to the adult plant. And the reason for that is then you have to compete with your offspring for soil nutrients, and that would be really bad. So a lot of times plants are relying on these seeds to be dispersed by either the wind, like a dandelion, the water, like in a coconut, or sometimes they use animals to disperse these, like your oaks. That's their primary strategy, is to get, you know, the number of species that eat them to move them throughout the forest and bury them into the ground, and that's how they get spread out. What's up, you guys? So we're looking at a piece of a maple tree I just cut off. So this maple, you can see the diameter here of the branch. It has this, I don't know, maybe 9 nodes present on this section. But pretty much if I wanted to create a new tree, I could cut this off, clean up a little bit of the bark here, the cork on the outside, and treat this with a rooting hormone and just stick this in the ground. And pretty much some plants would do it even without rooting hormone treatment.
If I put that directly into the ground, it will grow, and this would be obviously genetically identical to the plant that I took it from. It'd be a way for me to clone this without having fertilization occur. And so this is one method that you can have vegetative propagation. Sometimes you'll see trees actually send out off of their roots. They'll send up a second or a third tree. Again, genetics identical, be clonal, and these are all ways that plants have the ability to propagate. Another thing that farmers sometimes will exploit is you could take this tree branch down here and kind of see if I can cut it on an angle. So just made a small little cut on this. Hopefully you guys can see. Cut this on an angle here, and what I could do then is find a tree that's about the same diameter, like this little hickory here. Jeez, nothing's in focus today. Okay, but you can see maybe down in here that the diameter is pretty close. So what I could actually do is I could cut the hickory off. You guys can see here what's left. I cut it at an angle, and I could take and attach this tree directly to this. And if I do this correctly, just give me a second here, I should have the phloem and the xylem match up. So the transport mechanism for the bottom stalk and the top scion should be matched up, and I would use tape to attach these two together. Sometimes you'll see them use plastic wrap, okay, but that's called grafting, and that is a very useful technique for us to be able to get the genetics from this top plant to be distributed into 40-50 trees. So if we have like a seedless orange or a seedless grape, like I was showing you before, this is a way for me to propagate that, make many more of them in a very quick manner. So I just cut the top section off of the plant that I'm looking to have grow, and all of the growth at this point above ground is going to be from this maple, even though I have a hickory branch from this point going down here, okay, below my fingers. Above maple, below hickory, and it will have all the traits of a maple. I hope that makes sense. The last thing I want to point out is just the concept of genetic manipulation, which is done a lot in plants. Guys, cloning is very easy. A lot of our crops out there are all monocultures, very close genetically. The other thing we've done is insert different genes from one plant into the genes of another plant. We've even inserted genes from animals into plants, which is called transgenics, and that's accomplished pretty easily in plants. Plants, like, not like a human, you know, you couldn't really cut off my arm and grow a full other human. With plants, that's pretty easy to do. And plants also, it's a little bit easier to have them uptake genes. So you could actually infect them with a virus. The virus will inject the genetics that you're looking to have them done. And one of the most famous examples of transgenics I just would like everybody to be aware of, which is very beneficial, was golden rice. They took genes from a daffodil and inserted them into a rice variant that was able to be grown in a specific region where there was a lot of vitamin A deficiency, and it almost completely eradicated that type of blindness caused by the deficiency, because they were able to get beta carotene to be grown in that rice. Pretty cool example, but taking genes from one plant, putting them into another, transgenics.